What's up, weebs? Welcome back to Anime Lane, the podcast where we take you on a trip down the yellow brick road of anime and take a look at everything it has to offer. Now, this time, I'm actually joined by a different co-host. I am, of course, always, Rebel Notorious. But today, joining me is not Shaun and Melina. You'll still hear them. Don't worry, they're not going anywhere. They're just not going to be on it as often because anime is not their main thing. So I can't force them to watch something every week. But today joining me is my friend Kelsey.
Hi.
Say hello. Going forward, Kelsey's probably going to be my main co-host. She's very much interested in anime like I am. Nodding doesn't do anything for audio. So yeah, you can gesture, as we all do when we talk, but exactly. If you're giving a response, it's going to need to be audible. Kelsey's nervous. She's never done anything like this before. Which is totally valid. Not everyone spends their life around audio equipment and stuff like that. So today, I'll give you the spoiler warning way up front before we actually get into the topics we're going to talk about, because I've done it way late in the last episode. We're going to be talking about Makoto Shinkai's Your Name and Weathering With You. That's the only two we're going to be talking about. Last time we talked about 3, that went on too long. So we're going to be doing probably 2 going forward, and normally what I'd do is I'd shake it up and have 2 totally different things, but for me, Your Name and Weathering With You are totally inseparable movies.
They just go hand in hand.
Exactly. So we're going to cover both of those in the same episode, and it's all we're going to be talking about. So if you don't like Makoto Shinkai, if you don't like Your Name, if you don't like Weathering With You, I'm sorry.
Skip this one, maybe.
Yeah, come back for episode 3 where we're going to be talking about Galaxy Express 39 and Lupin the Third, Mystery of Mamo. But I'll go over more of that at the end of the episode. So before we jump into what we're going to be talking about, I kind of asked Shaun and Melina the same question, but they're like I said, they're not an anime, so it wasn't the exact same question. I asked them what their experience with anime was, and obviously short and sweet answers. Very little. Pokemon, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for Shaun, all that sort of, usual stuff that people grew up watching on TV.
Yeah.
So, what is your, how did you get into anime? How long have you been watching it? What have you,
Probably been watching it since kind of like early teens. My friend actually got me into it. I'm really like into drawing and things like this, so one of my friends showed me this character and I was like, oh my god, they are so pretty. What is this? I've never seen anything like this before. I've just seen like the standard cartoons that we have. She's like, this is an anime called Tokyo Mew Mew.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's my first kind of introduction into anime. Absolutely adored it. I watched half of it sub, the other half dub.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what is happening? So, yeah, had to go back and rewatch it all again.
So did you start subbed and then jump to the dub?
No. Started dub and then went to sub because they didn't have the other, like, ending in dub, so that's what
the classic,
yes.
Only so much is dubbed.
Exactly. And it was like 4 Kids or something like this.
Oh my god, that's
Does that take you
throwback. Yeah, because 4 Kids was essentially my introduction when I was very young. I grew up watching Shaman King, Dragon Ball, of course. Everyone grew up watching Dragon Ball. Not that 4 Kids had anything to do with that. That was it was either Blue Water or Ocean that would have been dubbing it at the time, for the UK, because I don't think we got the Funimation, which is like the main dub,
the actual,
until way later, which shocks me because like I can't even watch Dragon Ball in Japanese anymore because of like Sean Schemmel, the voice actor for Goku, and the Funimation version is just Goku for me.
Exactly.
It's totally inseparable. So like hearing, I forgot her name. I'm not even going to try and remember because I'd just fuck it up.
Yep.
She puts in a good performance, but it doesn't sound right to me.
It's not
Goku to me. So I grew up watching all that sort of stuff. Didn't realize at the time it was anime because no one did. It was all brought over, very westernized.
Exactly.
There's the infamous One Piece, 4Kids dub, where they like edited out Sanji's cigarettes and turned them into lollipops.
Yeah.
Turned the pistols into like bubble shooters or something like that.
Something like that.
There was
just
loads
trying
of
to censor it.
Yeah, loads of really weird edits, and it was funny because like I remember kind of reading into that, and it was basically the 4Kids head at the time had been like, yeah, we didn't want it, but we had to buy things in packages. So to get something they wanted, they had to take this on. And obviously, you need to make a return on investment. So they just had to work with what they had.
Yeah, exactly.
But then I never really watched anything for years until I was, I think, 16 when I was leaving high school.
I was the same, to be honest.
Yeah, didn't have much to do over a summer. So I ended up... Do you remember the app Cartoon HD?
Yes.
Totally like not legal in the slightest.
At all.
But I remember scrolling through it and finding Shaman King again, and so I started watching it and was like, "Oh fuck, okay, this is really good."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "I want more like this," and so I literally just looked up stuff like Shaman King.
Aye.
And I ended up on Bleach.
Oh god.
Yeah. Started watching Bleach, and then kind of from there just went on to title. And then eventually, like 6 months later, someone recommended Tokyo Ghoul to me, I think a girlfriend at the time. And at that point, it had just finished airing, so like there wasn't a dub available. I'm like, shit. Because at this point, I was watching only dub. I didn't really want to watch Japanese. I didn't want to watch the subbed versions. And eventually I just caved, and I started watching Tokyo Ghoul in subtitle, and I've kind of never really looked back. Much to, I think, your chagrin, where every time we watch something, I'm like, no, subtitled.
Exactly, that's it.
There are dubs that I do like. Your Name, I haven't had a chance to watch Weathering with You's dub yet, but, there's stuff that I don't mind. There's also stuff that I can't watch in Japanese either. Like, I can't... I at some point I will, but so far I haven't been able to watch Evangelion in Japanese, excluding the movies. I think I watched those in Japanese because the English dubs, they're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our journey through anime then. Are there any kind of like highlights you've had throughout, watching anime titles that mean something special to you? And
probably
like
Death Note, because that's the first one that I actually finished. Like went out my way to finish. And then Sword Art Online, absolutely adore Sword Art Online.
Which you haven't finished.
I haven't finished, no.
You got some way through season 2, I think.
Yeah.
You really need to...
I know, I need to step my game up.
Yeah, because like for me, I love Sword Art, and I've seen the first season so many times, but like it really just comes into its own once it hits the Alicization arcs and stuff like that, which sadly is all that's available in the anime. I don't know when we'll get more. There is like a 10th anniversary thing, because the anime started airing in 2012, where they're going to announce a new project, which is interesting because last year they put out the progressive movie. So the Sword Art Online progressive novel series is like, you know how in season 1 they obviously have the Aincrad stuff, which is very short. It's only like 14 episodes, but like that's reflective of what's in the books, and is actually buffed out by taking some of the side stories that are in the books as well, and published like way later. So that's like all that was available, and like so Reki Kawahara, the author, went back and started writing, like going kind of floor by floor and taking like a longer approach to the story, and so they adapted that into a movie, and now they at the end of that one they announced they're doing another one. So I'm kind of like, what are you gonna announce? Are you gonna announce another original movie like Ordinal Scale, which has ended up becoming canon later on, which is just baffling and confusing, or are they gonna announce that they're doing more when I don't think there's enough material for a new season? They could probably adapt Mooncradle, which was a short story arc after the end of Alicization, which was only 2 books long, and I guess technically season 1, the Aincrad story adapted 2 books, but the 25 episodes was adapted from like 4. So I'm kind of confused as to what they're going to do. Unitol Ring's a while from being finished, which is like the current and final arc of the series, which is saddening. So I don't know. I'm curious what they're going to announce. But yeah, you need to finish Sword Art.
I definitely do.
I also recommend reading the books. The books are very good. I actually like the book for Aincrad a lot more than I like the anime.
Really?
I think because, like, you know, season 1 and 2, they are, you know, solidly animated, but they're very kind of just standard. And it's not really until Alicization that, like, A1 Pictures really started going hard on animating it, and you've got some really nice scenes and fight sequences and stuff like that. Anyway, that's a longer conversation about Sword Art than I expected.
Whoops.
So yeah, Death Note was another one that I watched early on, and I remember loving that. It dips like after the halfway point, you know. Once so spoilers for Death Note if you haven't watched it. Where the fuck have you been though?
Exactly.
Once L dies, I think it takes a bit of a...
it's a bit kind of... I feel like it's maybe a bit slow.
It's
it takes ages to get to the point.
Nier and Mello are like weird antagonists.
Yeah.
And I feel like they never really knew what they were doing with either of them. You have Nier, who's like L 2.0, and Mello, who is...
I love that description.
I mean, there's no other way to describe them.
Yeah, true.
And Mello is just teen angst rebellion, I guess is the best way to describe him. Yeah. He doesn't really serve much purpose other than to just kind of foil everyone and get in the way and make the story longer.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so we were talking about... sorry, I do this all the time. We go on massive tangents and I forget what we were talking about. So we're talking about, you know, your kind of like special stuff. Are there any other ones that stand out? I know I'm kind of pulling teeth here to ask these questions over and over, but
no, of course.
Everyone has like a massive list of special titles to them, and it's always fun to see what everyone's...
Yeah, mine's is probably like the ones that everybody's watched.
That's fair though, is like... I don't think anyone should ever be ashamed of just having seen the ones everyone have seen,
because
it's
like everyone's like watched all these obscure ones. And I'm like, I have no idea what you've said. I'm sorry.
I mean, I could probably pull that, but like this is the thing, is like it's I say the same thing when it comes to music as well. Is like there's nothing wrong with only or really enjoying the things that people find popular, because they're popular for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
You're always going to have people who don't think they should be. You're always going to have people who dislike them. But like, there's no issue with just liking the things everyone else likes, because like I said,
like you said, they're popular for a reason.
Yeah, so they have to have some reason that they resonate with so many people, whether it's, you know, good storytelling, good animation, or there's just some underlying thing that you maybe can't quite put your finger on, which I think is, when we come to talking about it, Your Name, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, sorry, I derailed there a little bit going into that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, even if they are only the popular titles, and this is kind of why I wanted to start this show, is because like there's a lot of people who start getting into anime and they watch all the popular stuff, but they want more, and they want, you know, and they're maybe just not sure where to look, because anime is, to sort of paraphrase a quote from Ghost in the Shell, anime is vast and infinite, and it can be overwhelming and, you know, downright impossible just to begin wading through all the amount of shit that's on offer. And that's, you know, one of the reasons, like I said, I started this, is because I want to bring not necessarily the obscure ones, because like a lot of the stuff that I know I want to talk about, you know, off the bat, and a lot of the initial episodes are popular titles. You know, Your Name, Weathering with You. Okay, those are extremely popular titles, and those are in the mainstream of anime. Sorry, I totally blanked on what I was trying to say there. But stuff like you know, Lupin the Third, Castle Cagliostro, that is definitely, you know, popular in certain circles, but like I think it started to kind of fall by the wayside, and I think that's a bit unfair, because, you know, Hayao Miyazaki, that's his theatrical debut. It's a very fun, good movie. Ghost in the Shell, that is totally like massive, but again, I don't think a lot of modern anime fans really have seen it. And then there's Ghost Stories, which is kind of infamous in anime, and that was just kind of a case of, we've seen clips of this dub, which is a little I always struggle to describe this thing. There's a lot of like crass humor in it. and there's a lot of what are now become slurs used, like the R word.
Oh.
In reference to the main character's little brother and stuff like that, who just, whenever they're on screen, kind of just mumbles unintelligibly.
Yeah.
So that's Anyway, I keep doing this. I keep going on tangents. I'm so sorry. My brain's running at 100 miles per hour.
You're just so excited about everything.
Yeah, pretty much, because this is only the second episode, and in the first episode we didn't really have room to talk about anything other than, what we had to talk about.
Exactly.
It's good to have an opportunity to just kind of
get back and chat about it.
Yeah, and like kind of lay out the idea for the show and kind of what's coming up in the future. And like I mentioned, Shaun and Melina are still going to be around. They're still going to be doing episodes every so often. Kelsey's going to be here the most often. And at some point I do want the two worlds to collide. And mainly what I'm thinking, this isn't like, I'm not confirming this, I'm not putting anything in the books just yet, because it's going to take a lot of planning. But like at some point I want to do big special episodes about like Makoto Shinkai, or specific series that maybe we've all watched, and so I think at some point the first one I have in mind is Makoto Shinkai, so probably in individual episodes we'll go over them together. So today we're talking about Your Name and Weathering with You, but at some point we'll go over Garden of Words, Place Promised in Our Early Days, 5 centimeters per second, and Children Who Chase Lost Voices Deep Below. Holy shit, those were a lot of titles.
Say that 10 times fast.
So that we'll go over all of them between me and Kelsey, and then at some point I think probably in November, to celebrate the Japanese release of his new film Suzume no Toji Mari.
I'm so proud of you, Michael.
It's not the right one. That's not the right second word. I'm just going to double check that. Oh no, Suzume no Tojimari. Yes. Currently no English title, annoyingly. I think we had Your Name and Weathering with You's English titles kind of a little before this at this point. After their initial announcement, I mean. But yeah, so to celebrate the Japanese release of that, I think we'll probably do like a big episode where all four of us get together.
That'd be really good, yeah.
And we just kind of talk about Shinkai's body of work. So I'll get them to watch the episodes, and obviously, that's where a lot of planning and a lot of coordination comes into it, and scheduling. So at some point, we'll probably all appear together. There'll be 4 voices on the podcast, and it'll be utter chaos, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
It will be great.
I can't wait for probably Melina just to rip Your Name to shreds. She didn't like a silent voice, so I'm very concerned.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No.
So I think I've rambled on about this enough. I'm sure there'll be episodes where we go over just random shit where there's no like actual things we've watched to discuss. We're just going to talk about anime.
Just in general.
Just in general, yeah. But yeah, so we'll get on to Your Name and Weathering with You. So we'll start with Your Name because, that's the first one. That was when Makoto Shinkai hit the fucking big time.
Exactly.
Massively popular all around the world. I think it was the first anime movie that like I seen everywhere. And in terms of like being in the cinema, people talking about it, advertisements for it everywhere. Yeah. It was massive, and I'm so sad I missed the chance to see it in the theater, which is why I was dead set that I was going to see Weathering with You in theater, and I did. I saw it twice.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. I would have saw it a third time, but then COVID hit, so
Rip.
That put a nail in the coffin on that plan. So where do we begin with talking about Your Name? It's a movie that really means like so much to me, because I watched it when I was at a very low point.
Yeah.
And it just massively kind of captured me, from the music to the artwork to the story. It was just so lovely to see.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the animation is like the. In fact, that was an interesting thing, because Your Name was the second Shinkai movie I ever saw. The one I saw before that was 5 centimeters per second, which was, I think, 2007, so like nearly 10 years before.
Like a gap, yeah.
Yeah. So I think his first movie came out in 2004, The Place Promised in the early days, and then it was 5 centimeters per second, and then Children Who Chase Lost Voices in, I want to say 2011, and then Garden of Words around 2013, 2014, and then we got Your Name, I think, in 2016 in Japan. But Garden of Words, interestingly, when I watched that after seeing Your Name, was very similar aesthetically or animation style wise. It was certainly where he kind of started to nail what he was aiming for.
His style.
Yeah, because like Place Promised, 5 centimeters, and Children Who Chase Lost Voices, they all look kind of different. And this is the thing, is like, I know we're gonna be talking about these films separately at some point. We're gonna be talking about them all again later on, but like Children Who Chase Lost Voices was a Miyazaki clone, and is easily his weakest movie in my opinion.
Oh really?
Yeah, it very much like, because I remember when Your Name came out, the whole thing was he's the next Hayao Miyazaki. He's the next, Studio Ghibli. Right. And then I watched it and I'm like, but it's not. He's not. And that's like the worst thing that you can say.
It's trying to put someone on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And it's not to say that he doesn't deserve the praise, because he absolutely does, for both Your Name and for Weathering with You. But it's the comparison to Miyazaki just riles me up. Because Miyazaki makes such specific movies for such, not specific people, but for such a wide audience, whereas like Shinkai is making something so unashamedly his own work, especially once he hit Your Name and Weathering with You, and I can't wait to see what he does with Suzume no Tojimari. But like seeing it everywhere was something special. I totally lost my train of thought again. I hate it when this happens. This is gonna be like the theme of the episode, is I just fucking derail myself. What were we talking about? The animation, yeah. But this is where he really nailed it, in terms of what he was wanting to do, I think. And then he improved upon that in Weathering with You. So I've been talking at length. Yeah, Weathering with You is gorgeous, 100%.
Absolutely.
It was an interesting one because between Your Name and Weathering with You, I think at Comics Wave, one of the art directors or lead animators, I think, had previously worked at Studio Ghibli, and had worked with him on, I think, Children Who Chase Lost Voices, Garden of Words, and then Your Name. But then he left, and so I was kind of like, is Weathering with You gonna suck? And it didn't. I think it totally like, shook off any shackles of like being, cashing in on Your Name. Thematically and many other kind of narrative ways, it's undeniably linked to Your Name, but like it's totally its own thing. It totally does. It's like, Shinkai is an auteur, and that's so every movie you watch from him, there's going to be the same things crop up, because that's what an auteur does, is they create their own style and their own tropes and narrative quirks and stuff. And you've seen Garden of Words, so you know that's kind of true.
It is, yeah.
To an uncomfortable degree in Garden of Words, because there's a lot of feet and I hate feet. And I'm glad that was not a Tarantino thing that Shinkai rolled with. I'm so thankful if you're ever listening to this, Shinkai. Thank you so much for never bringing feet up again in your movies.
That was my main description when I completely forgot what it was called, and I was just trying to describe to you, and I was like, feet, and you were like, yes. Yeah,
because I had seen it like a little before you, like, we were talking about Shinkai, I think.
Yeah.
Because I remember like trying to get you to watch Your Name, or like recommending Your Name to you.
I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, of course.
as everyone does when they're recommended an anime or anything to watch, really. I mean, my friends are still trying to get me to keep watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Marvel show, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. I've watched the first 2 seasons, and then like I was like, I'll get to the 3rd season, but like I got pestered so much to keep watching it. I'm like, no.
Because you want me to do it, I'm not going to do it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if people keep recommending it to you, you're like, no, I'm not going to watch it.
I want to do it on my terms, not your terms.
Yeah, because like that's why I've never watched The Wire. Everyone goes on about The Wire, and I'm like,
I'm the same.
Get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then eventually we did watch Your Name.
Yep. Because you literally were like, I'm bringing this to you, and you're watching this. So
I brought a couple of movies that day.
Yeah.
I can't remember what other ones I brought though.
You brought Weathering with You because we were meant to watch like more than one movie.
Did I bring Weathering with You?
Yeah, you did.
Was Weathering with You in Blu-ray at that point?
I don't know, but you did.
I would have had the Japanese Blu-ray at that point. Yeah, because all of Shinkai's movies in Japan have the English subtitles on them on their Blu-ray. So I've imported Your Name and Weathering with You. So I had it in the UK like months before we even had the whisper of the UK Blu-ray coming out. Yeah, I forgot about that. I thought, what else did I bring? Other ones, or did I just bring the two?
No, you brought more, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
it was like
I'm totally blanking.
Big thing.
I thought
that looks like a bit much.
Yeah, I do remember bringing a bigger one. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm like confused, because like I do own larger versions of Your Name and Weathering with You, or well, at the time I didn't have a larger version of Weathering with You. I'm like, I didn't take the collector's sets of Your Name because I would have just taken the Japanese Blu-ray. So I'm totally like unsure what else I brought that day.
Honestly, I'm the same. Like the two that stick out was Your Name and Weathering with You, because obviously that's the ones that I was most excited to actually watch with you. Yeah.
That's weird. Like I thought those would have stuck in my mind because like if I picked them to take and have someone watch, they must be like something what I deem to be incredible movies.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's gonna bug me.
Sorry.
But anyway, yeah, we eventually watched it together. And yeah, I think you fell in love with it.
I fell in love with it. I cried. You cried.
I did cry, yeah. I warned you that would happen.
We were both just sobbing at the end of this film.
And like the thing is like every time I rewatch these sort of things, because I know what's coming, is like as soon as something like happens, that's it. I'm gone. I'm in tears, because like especially with Shinkai movies, as soon as certain songs kick in, I know what's coming.
It just gets you in the feels.
It just gets me in the feels.
It does.
Like when okay, I'm gonna give up on like separating the conversations about these movies. Just know that we're gonna be flipping between Your Name and Weathering with You probably interchangeably, consistently.
So you need to watch them both.
You definitely need to watch both of these. Because like and Weathering with You, I think seems to have more kind of emotional hits with its music. So like when Grand Escape kicks in, you know, when he goes up into the sky to get Hina back, and the fucking piano kicks in, I'm like, oh shit.
You just looked at me and I was like, oh my god.
Because that, I think, is the just perfect moment of that film. And the animation and the
gorgeous
musical timing, everything just worked out perfectly.
I love the lighting as well.
Yeah, the lighting as well. That's the thing about Weathering with You, is that they really stepped up the lighting.
They really did.
I think because it plays such an important role in the movie, because obviously, you know, Weathering with You, the whole premise is that Tokyo is, or Japan in general, is going through like just horrible weather when it's supposed to be summer. But Hina, is that the main character's name? I feel like it doesn't sound right for some reason, because I know it's Hodaka is the guy.
I'm sure it's Hina.
I think it's Hina. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna hate myself. Because you got Take and Mitsuha from Your Name. That's the two from Your Name. Hina Amano, yeah. Never mentions her last name in the movie though.
No. I was just kind of trying to remember names because like honestly I'm the world's worst with names. So I was like, Michael can say the names. I can just agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much once you commit to anime, you just kind of have to solidify that you're going to have to remember a lot of strange names.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like once, Hodaka goes up into the sky to rescue Hina, and it's when they start falling through the clouds, and it kicks in with, the music builds and builds.
Exactly.
But then it cuts and just fully kicks in with that, just for today, gravity can go to sleep line is just amazing. Because when I first went to see that in theatres, so I went to see it originally at Scotland Loves Anime 2019, which happens every year at the Edinburgh Film House in Edinburgh.
Pretty self-explanatory
there. It also happens in Glasgow. That's why I was going to specify. The week before the Edinburgh one, there's the premieres at Glasgow, at the Glasgow Film Theatre. Apparently the GFT is not that comfortable though, so I've never been. It's also, I find Glasgow just a bit more awkward to get to than Edinburgh.
I love Glasgow. Come on.
I don't like it because it's a bit too industrial and a bit too grey, bland. I've never been there when it hasn't been raining.
I mean, true.
Whereas whenever I go to Edinburgh, it's scorching sunshine.
Exactly. You just melt.
Yeah, and Edinburgh is such a beautiful city as well.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So many different, eras and styles of architecture.
Architecture, exactly.
This is a thing of this is another strange thing of being an anime fan, is that suddenly you become very interested in architecture.
Why is that true?
I've never been able to explain that, but before I started watching anime, I had no interest in it. It didn't bother me. I mean, I still thought Edinburgh was a stunning, beautiful city. But now that I started watching anime,
you've seen it through new eyes.
Yeah,
it's exactly it.
I think it's because so many anime, because you have a freedom, from reality, you can do so many interesting things with architecture, and you can use it in so many different ways. And there's so many stunning shots from anime that use architecture in ways that you would never think, and you'd never be able to do even in live action. That's that shot from Weathering with You where they're I think it's during not Voices of Wind because that's the opening song, during Celebration, where it's doing the kind of montage of them.
Yeah.
And you have the sun coming out, and then it cuts to the skyscrapers, and just all the windows are bathed in sunlight.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's also a reference to another movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so at least between me and a friend, we've kind of determined that it might be a reference to another Mamoru Oshii movie who directed Ghost in the Shell. Pat Labor 2 has a very similar shot.
Oh, wow.
And it's so framed in the same way that we're is it a nod?
Yeah. Like it's too similar to be a coincidence.
And it wouldn't surprise me, if a current big anime director was a fan of a big anime director from the 90s and 80s.
Exactly.
What was I saying? I've derailed myself yet again.
Architecture.
No, before that, I'm going to go back to Scotland Loves Anime. Yes. But yeah, so you have the Glasgow side, which is the whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, I think Sunday as well, and then you have a full week, I think a week after. So there's a gap. So you have the weekend, a gap week, and then Edinburgh starts, and it is a full week of anime. There's stuff during the day, Monday to Friday, and then there is the Saturday, Sunday, which are the big titles. And so I went on the Saturday and I saw Children of the Sea, which was a movie for sure. We'll cover it eventually. Then there was Weathering with You, and then there was the 14th One Piece movie, which they made the mystery movie that year, and no one was happy. Even me as a One Piece fan, I was like, this isn't what I was coming for. No. I didn't know what I was coming for.
Something different.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It was nice because that celebrated the series' 20th anniversary, so there was a lot of nice, you know. Again, though, it celebrates its 20th anniversary, so it's not exactly a newcomer-friendly movie. It's stacked with a lot of characters.
Exactly, I wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, there's so many One Piece movies that you could pick up and watch and not have seen any episode of One Piece. But this one, you very much had to have seen 700, 800 episodes of it just to know every character that shows up and kind of every reference they make. So just a terrible choice all around. although in that screening there was a set of girls in front of us, so I ended up meeting up with some friends who I didn't know were going. A guy I went to high school with, hadn't spoken to in years, was in the queue in front of me. We started talking right before One Piece, and so we were sitting together, and there was this sort of group of girls in front of us who had been to see, you know, all the movies. And the girl in front was like a very big One Piece fan, and we started talking about it, and I'm like, I never got her fucking name.
Like, missed opportunity.
I know, I'm like, shit. But yeah, seeing Weathering with You, getting back to my point, finally, seeing it at Scotland Loves Anime, the lyrics didn't have any, well, there was no lyrics on screen, so there wasn't a translation for any of the song lyrics. And then when I seen it in the following January, so I watched that in the October, and then it hit, you know, theatres in general in the January, and it did. It finally had song lyrics, so I knew the moment was coming, and I started, you know, getting built up when the song kicks in, when Hodaka finally appears in the clouds and the piano starts. But then when they crashed through the clouds and the music kicks back up and then they start singing and it's, you know, gravity goes to sleep. I didn't know that that's what it was going to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit. Like I could have
caught you off guard kind of thing.
I could have looked up those lyrics before, but I, for whatever reason, never wanted to. I think I always knew that the first time I wanted to experience what those lyrics meant was seeing it translated within the movie. And so when it comes up in the top corner of the screen, you know, Gravity Falls Asleep Just for Today, I was like, oh. Fuck.
Oh my goodness, yep.
Yeah, that, this is the thing, I always say Your Name and Weathering with You are like inseparable, but for me, I think the music of Weathering with You might just be slightly better.
Yeah, pips it to the post kind of thing.
Yeah, I think because, you know, Radwimps, Your Name was their first soundtrack, because obviously they're a band.
Oh.
But they provided the soundtrack for Your Name. And so I think when, you know, Weathering with You rolled around, they had more experience, they had, you know, they had refined the craft.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why the music of Weathering with You works a little bit better than it does in Your Name. That's not to say Your Name has a bad soundtrack. It still
Definitely
has some fantastic songs. And I appreciate that, like, every song from Your Name had like an English version. Understandably, Weathering with You doesn't, because you have Toko Miura, a female singer who guests on I think 3 or 4 of the songs, so you know she might not be able to speak English, whereas the lead singer of Radwimps, he's bilingual, he grew up in America. So it's kind of unfair to just be like, here, sing all these English words.
Exactly. Like
So I think in the end, I think it's only Is There Still Anything Love Can Do that ends up being the only translated song, which only plays over the credits in its English version. Because I think in the movie, does that song actually get played in the movie? Oh yeah, it does, when he's running up the stairs. You know, once they've had the sort of the really great scene with the gun at the end with the police officers, and he's like running up. That's Is There Still Anything Love Can Do. Plays in the movie in Japanese, but then in the credits it plays in English if you select the option. So yeah, I totally understand it. It would have been nice to hear like full English versions, but I get why they did it. Like I said, I think the use of music in Weathering with You is ramped up a notch from Your Name. This is the thing, I feel like I should have laid out how we went about discussing these movies, because I just gush about these movies whenever I'm sat down to talk about them. And yeah, so Your Name, I feel like I've been gushing about Weathering with You.
We've touched on it.
Yeah. And maybe this is where I explain why I think they're inseparable movies. Just so everyone's on the same page, because we've been going for like 40 minutes and I haven't explained myself yet. God. Not to say that this is going to be 40 minutes on the timestamp of the podcast. I may cut some shit out.
Thank God.
But basically, I think they're totally inseparable, because like Weathering with You is the other side of the coin of Your Name. Your Name is the beautiful, light, loving movie, and then Weathering with You is the darker underside to that.
Yeah.
It tells very much a similar story and actually has a brighter ending.
Exactly.
Because Your Name, you know, it ends with, we don't know what happens with Taki and Mitsuha. They meet on the stairs and it's like, hey, what's your name? And then, and then the music starts playing.
Exactly.
But then
just hope that they get together.
Hope that they get together, yeah. But then with Weathering with You, you know, we see them get together. They you know, he gets the girl.
He gets the girl, exactly.
Which is a great ending to that movie, I think, because it's such a, you know,
it takes so many twists and turns.
And you know, it's a much heavier movie, I'd say, than Your Name. Your Name, you know, it has its, you know, heavy side. You find out that they're 3 years apart and Mitsuha died.
That like blew my mind the first time.
Like her whole village was just totally wiped out by a meteor. But like Weathering with You just tonally is much darker, I'd say. You know, once you introduce a gun in a Japanese movie, it's very different because guns are like a big no over there.
Oh, really?
Like super, you know, like against the law. I mean, I know they're against the law here, but like,
of course.
You know, even in Japan, you know, the Yakuza won't touch them. Big just no. Which is why I think he's a Yakuza that's like trying to convince Hina to like join the club type thing, which is probably, you know, be an underage prostitute. I think
big yikes.
Best left to interpretation, I think. I think he's a Yakuza, and you visibly see when he pulls out the gun, he's like, whoa, what the fuck?
Exactly.
This just went from a light, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, to, oh fuck, he has a gun.
Yeah, that child there has a gun.
Yeah. It's like, how the hell did you get a gun in Japan? But that's even a thing of like, with Weathering with You, there's so many subtle like hints of things that are to come in the movie, like before he finds the gun, when he first arrives in Tokyo, and I think when he first gets to not Akihabara, Kotobuki. No, not, is it Kotobuki? The kind of entertainment district place. Kabukicho. Kabukicho, I think, is the name of the district. Kabukicho. Yes, Kabukicho. That's the entertainment district. Once he gets there, and like you see there's a big kind of TV screen with the news playing, and you see the guns, and it's like a news report about how there's been guns being brought into the country and stuff like that, and how some of them have gone missing.
I'll need to watch it again just to catch that again.
It works the same with like Your Name. There's so many things that once you've seen the movie once, when you go back, you kind of start picking up on a lot of different things, and that's actually an interesting thing. Is like, I meant to look into this. But early in the movie, you see Hodoka reading J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye.
Alright, yeah.
And I was like, what meaning does that bear on the movie? Because as far as I'm aware, Catcher in the Rye is about a mental asylum, unless I'm thinking of a different movie. I've always thought, you know, it's about like a doctor in a mental asylum who's not great to his patients.
It sounds familiar, but
it was originally intended for adults, but is often read by adolescents for its themes of angst, alienation, and as a critique of superficiality in society. Okay, I suddenly realise why he's seen reading it in the movie.
Yep.
Interestingly, actually, this I found out from looking up about I did a brief Google but didn't do too much of a deep dive of it, but apparently it's translated by an author called Murakami. I think it's Murakami anyway. Haruki Murakami, I believe, is the name of the author, who is a massively famous Japanese author, but also heavily translated in English as well. Very popular. And I'm like, okay, this must have some relevance. But now reading that, I think I get it, because that's sort of the theme of the movie in itself as well, is kind of teenage rebellion, and thinking that, you know, you can change the world.
Take on the world, yeah.
Take on the world, which they very much do in Weathering With You. Again, we said we were going to start talking about Your Name, and I've been talking about fucking Weathering With You again. Holy fuck. That's the thing, is, like, I feel like, because Weathering With You is the newest one, sorry if I sound a bit odd at times, my sinuses are still acting up, and I'm not sure why. I think we may just be approaching allergy season. So if I suddenly start sounding very nasally, it's because my sinuses are just like, fuck you. So that's the thing, is like, because Weathering With You is the newest one, I haven't had as much time to do as heavy in depth, you know, thinking, reflecting, analysing.
Exactly.
These things that, you know, you always do with movies you love. Whereas, like, you know, I watched Your Name when it first came out in 2017, and I think it was 2017 or 2018, whenever it came out in Japanese Blu-ray.
It was 2016.
So it might have been 2017 when the Japanese Blu-ray came out, because they wait longer.
Right.
Because Weathering With You was, I want to say, July 2019, and then it was almost July 2020 by the time the Blu-ray came out. Whereas we're a very quick turnaround over here. You know, it's like the movie's in theaters for like 3 months and you have it.
That's it.
Whereas, and now because of COVID, you know, a lot of things only have like a 45-day window before they're available digitally. I mean, you can still catch them in theaters, but like you can get a hold of them relatively easily after about 45 days. But like I remember watching it back in 2017, so like I have talked to people endlessly about this movie, recommending it to them, people who love it as much as I do, talking in depth about it. And so it's weird, is like sometimes I'm just thinking, like, what more can I say about the movie other than, you know, watch it.
Do it.
If you're listening to this, you have to have seen it, please.
You couldn't have got this far in.
No, we've massively spoiled the point of the movie. Like, you could have been 10 minutes in listening to this podcast in the movie, and I've just told you what happens halfway through it. Because yeah, like I remember watching it, and then like that twist for the first time, that they're 3 years apart, that she's dead, her whole village is dead, and that, you know, that was astounding. You know, no one seen, or I don't think anyone's seen it coming, because it's not until you watch. It
pulled the rug out from underneath me, honestly.
Because like I was wondering, where's this gonna go?
Exactly.
You know, what's gonna happen? And like, you know, the first hint is that she goes to Tokyo and, you know, tries to meet him, but he doesn't recognize her. He doesn't know who she is. Which is interestingly already hinted at the beginning of the movie, because that's one of the opening scenes. Is, you know, him waking up in her body, remembering that, and then, you know, we just cut to Mitsuha during her normal everyday life. It's not until I think about 20 or 30 minutes into the movie that you actually see her switch with him for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
So it does all this massive building up to, you know, them switching, to them, you know, then laying the ground rules of, you know, what...
Kind of like leaving notes for each other and things like that, yeah.
And, you know, as much as Mitsuha is like one that's like, we need the rules, she is the one easily breaking them the most, because like she's fully fucking with his relationships.
Exactly.
Like going after Onodera, the Okudera? I think it's Okudera.
Thanks.
I don't think it's Onodera, I think it's Okudera. The kind of like, she's not his boss. I don't know what.
I think they just work together.
Yeah, I think it's just because she's slightly older and she's worked there longer.
Exactly.
That she's kind of like the senpai.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like every time I watch the movie, I'm like, she's not the boss. Like I can't actually figure out. I think she's maybe just, you know, the most senior.
She's the senior
waitress. But yeah, Mitsuha fully fucks with that relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
What also kind of confuses me is that she actually gets a date with her. And then later on, when they're like searching for Mitsuha, once Taki, is fully still in control of his body, they stop switching and everything like that. She's old enough to smoke.
Yeah.
Which means there's like a 4 or 5 year difference between them.
There must be.
Because Taki has to be 16, 17. I think Taki's 17.
I think he is 17.
She has to be at least 20, 21.
21,
Because I know that the liquor laws in Japan are 20 for drinking. Right. So I think the smoking has to be around the same age. It's an odd...
Yeah, it's kind of... It's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, because like he's getting ready to go to college. She's finished college.
Exactly.
Like, I think she even mentions that. And then, like, later on, near the end of the movie, when he's, like, applying for jobs, not a huge amount of time has gone by at that point, I don't think. I think he's maybe 19.
Yeah. She's
pregnant and having a family, remember? She shows up.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And I'm like, what is the age difference between these people? Because she fully wanted to go on a date with him.
Exactly.
And it just...
did she not say that she liked him as well?
Yeah. She said she liked him better when he was Mitsuha.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes sense because she was the one actively trying to, start the relationship.
Kind of going after her.
Yeah, Taki was, admire from afar
exactly.
approach.
Just kind of... yeah.
Yeah. So that's a weird one. I've never quite understood, like, how old she is because she also is, like, very much kind of, I'd say... depicted older, just kind of into her appearance overall. She kind of reminds me a lot of Fujiko from the Lupin the Third series, actually, who's like in her 20s or something. Yeah, that's the one thing. Like every time I think back in the movie, I'm like, that's a little weird.
Yeah, it's kind of a sticking point there.
Yeah. That also does mean, though, that there's like a 3-year age gap between... Which isn't strange in the slightest, really.
Yeah, because, like, her town's been destroyed for 3 years. That means, like, she's going to be older than him.
I think they established that they're in the same year in high school.
I think they did, yeah.
And then, obviously they're 3 years apart, which means I think Mitsuha has to be 3 years older than him. So when she's now living in Tokyo, she has to be like a fully established adult. And he's just kind of
becoming an adult.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing when they meet again. Because, like, she surely has to be a totally different person by that point. Because when I think of back to myself in high school, like, even 2 or 3 years ago, like, before I started working, totally different person.
Yeah, I'm the exact same, honestly.
There's no way that your high school crush shows up and you're like, oh yeah, let's do this. Yeah. Like you probably meet them and go, oh, why?
Exactly. Maybe it's just kind of because the feels, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they do establish that they have some sort of supernatural connection. I'm picking a little too much at the movies, underlying romance, which is...
Yeah, but, like, he did write I love you on her hand.
He did.
So...
I mean, his name would have been more helpful.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole kind of point, but,
It's sweet and it's romantic, but it's not practical, my dude.
That's what it was like when I was watching it again. I was just laughing. I was like, yeah, he was telling her that he was going to write his name. And then when she goes to try and remember it, he was like, oh, I can't remember his name. Oh, wait, look. Oh, it says I love you.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's not helpful in the slightest.
I mean, the thing is, it's a great moment because, again, musical coordination.
Yep.
Because that song is called Sparkle, and it's very long. It's like 8 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, like, if I remember looking at it, and, like, every time it comes on, I, like, listen to it. But it's because there's, like, an instrumental section in the middle, because it like stops and then like just goes into like the background music, but then obviously comes back up again later on. So I'll just check, because I think it is. You might be able to hear it. Yeah, it's almost 9 minutes long.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, and every time I listen to it, I forget that. And I think like the English version's like kind of short in comparison. I think they made it like only maybe 4 or 5 minutes in the English version, even though like the same length of time goes by in the movie and it's the same musical cue. I can't find the English version on the soundtrack. Where is it? Dream Lanterns there. Okudera is her name. Yeah, theme of Okudera. Visit the Hida. Where is Sparkle? I actually don't see Zen 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 either. In fact, I only see Dream Lantern. Oh no, there's Zen Zen Zen. Zen Zen Zent. I never know how to pronounce that word. Anyway, yeah, very longer song than you think. Very good use of it in the movie though. You know, just kind of plays and then it goes into background music. You have that whole scene where, you know, Mitsuha shows up and argues with her dad and they start, you know, coordinating how to move everyone out of the town, and then she falls off the bike and she reads that and then the song kicks back up again. It's great. I love the use of music can really just make me fall in love with something. And I don't know if it's because like music's such a big thing in my life in general, because you have some people who like never take notice of these sorts of things.
Like, how can you not though?
I know. Like for the next episode with Shaun and Melina, we'll be talking about Galaxy Express 39, and like the whole kind of reason Shaun like was like we should talk about that is because he heard the theme song for the movie and he's like, this is fucking catchy, like what the fuck. And then I basically explained the premise to Melina as like a train that rides through space, and she's like, fuck, let's watch that.
You've got me.
Yeah. So yes, next week maybe. I don't know the schedule of the podcast so far. But next time, Galaxy Express 39, watch it. Very good movie. Anyway, back to Your Name. I love the sort of difference in colour palette as well between the two movies, because like Your Name is such a warm looking movie. There's lots of reds, oranges. I mean, red and orange are literally like the key colours of the movie because of Mitsuha's bracelet. And also, I don't know if you know about this, but like, do you know in Japan they have the whole red string of fate thing?
I've heard about it, but I've not kind of...
So this is an interesting thing that I don't think I see too many people talk about when it comes to the movie. So in Japan there is a urban legend or folklore thing where everyone has a red string tied around their pinky, and it connects to the person that they're destined to be with.
Aww.
And basically that's Your Name.
Yeah.
You know, when she gives him the bracelet, you see it in the opening.
Oh, I do.
During Dream Lantern,
as
it changes into the and basically it connects them.
Oh my goodness. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so that's like that's another underlying theme of the movie is, you know, fate and being connected to someone else. And so, you know, again, red, orange, all of these sort of like really warm colours. And then, you know, that contrasts against Weathering with You is very kind of grey. I can't even say colder because it is very much just grey most of the time. Which I think kind of serves to make all the kind of just Tokyo in general stand out and look very, you know, beautiful in general. You know, you have all the kind of neon signs of Kabukicho. It just pops out. Also the rain looks fucking fantastic in that movie. And it weirdly is like it reaches a sort of uncanny valley stage, but also then tips back into like it's so aesthetically designed that it's weird. I don't know how to describe it.
That's exactly it, because that's what I was saying when we first watched it. I was like, this is so weird. It's definitely Uncanny Valley. Like, it's verging on too realistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Tokyo's very kind of almost photorealistically designed in the movie. Much to like, you know, Shinkai very much made that decision. Like I said, is like there's been like a thing said. I remember Dr. Jonathan Clements, who's a kind of big, you know, writer in the anime industry, especially in the UK. He introduces all the movies at Scotland's Anime, and he was like, you know, you could destroy Tokyo and rebuild it based on this movie. And there was also like another anecdote I think he told about Shinkai and Weathering with You was that the reason rain features so prominently in the movie is because Shinkai loves rain because it brings people together, or like, I wish I could remember exactly what he says, but it's basically like it affects everyone, and in different ways. People love it, people hate it, that sort of thing. He did an audio commentary for Scotland Loves Anime in 2020 when everything was in lockdown and online. I'm going to have to listen to it because I hope he tells that story again, because I wish I could remember exactly what he said. So if there's an addendum later onto this podcast, it'll be that. So yeah, he's obsessed with Rain. And yeah, Weathering with You also, I think, was made in response to like everyone comparing him to Miyazaki. Or in fact, no, it was because Miyazaki was like, not, I don't think he was happy that Weathering with You was so successful for some fucking reason. I mean, this is the thing, is like at some point I'm gonna cover Miyazaki in depth. I have varied thoughts on him. He's a fantastic director, but he's a fucking grumpy old man who maybe just sometimes needs to keep his opinions to himself.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
No, exactly. This is the thing. This is a man who is like, no, you shouldn't be watching movies all the time. It's like you should only be going to theaters to see them, because that way you're not rotting your brain. And I'm like, dude, you created one of the first commercially successful TV anime.
Exactly.
Because he directed Future Boy Conan for NHK, which is like basically the Japanese equivalent of the BBC, and that was the first anime that NHK had ever shown. So like the kind of joke around at the time, I think, was that you shouldn't be watching anime, you should be watching NHK for the real TV series. And then Future Boy Conan starts and everyone's like, Dad, this is NHK. So he complains about a lot of things that like he directly has a hand in creating, but basically he was pissed off or something about Your Name, and basically Shinkai was like, fuck it, I'm gonna annoy him even more. So yeah, Weathering with You was made in response to that.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Again, I mean, we did speak a bit at length about Your Name there, but I feel like I'm grasping at straws for what to say about Your Name, because like I said, I feel like I've said everything I can say about it. It's a stunningly beautiful movie, and the animation and its music and the story that it tells. The story is so... it takes a turn and it takes a twist and it pulls the rug out from under you, but it's so simple and human that everyone can get behind it.
Relate.
Yeah. Everyone knows what it's like to fall in love with someone else and to desperately do anything that you want, to get them, to be with them, even if it means going in the face of, and that covers both Your Name and Weathering with You.
It is, yeah.
Your Name is flying in the face of like literal death to get back the person that you love, whereas Weathering with You is going totally against the world or dooming the world essentially, to get back the person that you love. Then Weathering with You is a whole kind of climate change allegory as well, which just adds the whole kind of what's the word? Not ties it all together, but adds just an extra level of appreciation to the movie. Because like a lot of people, I think especially Japan, which is a rather conservative country, to say that their politicians are far right is maybe being nice. and to say that a lot of the anime directors and a lot of kind of personalities from manga and anime from like the 80s and the 90s who are still around are have some disgusting opinions and stuff, and so it's refreshing to see someone who is willing to deal with a topic like climate change head on. And
not
that's
shy away from it
exactly
as well.
We've been talking for over an hour now, so I don't know if we're exhausted with Your Name and Weathering with You talking about them.
Don't mind.
Unless you have anything else you want to say.
The only thing that I can think of is what you said the other day was like the slight differences in the timeline.
Yeah.
Like where she has a different kind of generational phone and kind of like there's slight differences.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to go back and watch it again just to try and pick that up. But
yeah,
Netflix is a dick, so.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, that's the thing is like, I thought about at some point buying it on Blu-ray for you, but I'm like, I don't know if you like, because I know you don't collect them or like you don't buy them. So I was like, I don't know. But then it left Netflix, and I'm like, fuck, I should have.
Oh, honestly, like I went to watch it this morning, and apparently it went off yesterday. I'm not even joking.
Oh, that's so rough. So rough.
Because I was googling it, I was like, right, I know it's on here. I watched it like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Like, where is it? I just want to rewatch it again.
Yeah, we've had some good conversations. So I think we'll call it. On this episode, we're hitting about 90 minutes, and I'm sure once I edit that down, I can get it to about an hour. Because there's probably stuff that I can cut, in there.
Yeah.
Big gaps and my, derailing myself. But yeah, so thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Anime Lane. If you're wanting more information on the podcast and what's coming up, follow us over on Twitter at Anime Lanecast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.